outcomes.
After nearly 4 decades, a healthcare advocate in the Senate steps down.
It also means
And we discuss higher ed and job development in Capitol Report. Hello everybody, welcome to this week's Capitol Report. I'm Julie Bartkey. Now that a budget is in place for the state, we continue our conversations on some of the impacts of the legislation, and we also continue our discussions with members of the governor's cabinet. We begin today's program with the Commissioner of Higher Ed, Dr. Sheila Wright. Dr. Wright, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
You have a broad array of job experiences, from professor at Hamline University to a classroom teacher in visual arts. Tell me what you're taking from your career that you are now bringing into your new post.
My understanding of education throughout the pipeline, from early childhood, having taught early childhood development and courses in preparing teachers, so I understand K-12, and what happens to students as they go through the pipeline and enter into higher ed. In higher education, my experience has been broad in terms of the different types of institutions, public, private, not for profit institutions. I haven't had experience there, but certainly public institutions beginning with Mankato or community colleges, and private institutions like Hamline and St. Xavier in Chicago.
So what would you consider at this point the greatest challenge for students who are seeking higher education?
I think understanding and making quality choices about which type of institution that best fits their needs and their aspirations for careers. Certainly, if you, in Minnesota, for example, we have a very outstanding MnSCU system that has 2- and 4-year institutions, well known for great preparation of law enforcement, nursing and teaching, 2-year institutions, places that people can go and acquire their certification and advanced degrees, but think through how they can transfer into a 4-year institutions. Not all are ready for 4-year institutions, so it depends on where they are economically and where they are in their thinking. There are research institutions like the University of Minnesota system. There are outstanding private institutions. I think it depends on, really thinking through, what is it that I want out of my life? What is it that I'm good at? And really becoming knowledgeable about the different types of institutions and the systems and the way in which they work.
Would you consider it then one of your priorities to help guide students through this process? And then what are some of your priorities with your new commission?
Well, the agency's primary, the majority of our work is focused on financial aid and data collection, and we spend a great deal of our time providing information to our citizens to help them make those choices. We don't make those choices for them. That's up to the individual. But certainly through our state grant program, the state values higher education and supports the student. Those funds follow the students as they enter, regardless of the type of institution they select. So the student might decide to go to a MnSCU school or University of Minnesota school or for-profit or one of the other private institutions, and the state grant follows the student. So certainly that choice element is there. It's up to the student, ultimately. We provide guidance and support. We have an outstanding program, Gear Up, Get Ready program, that helps students early in K-12 become more familiar with higher ed and try and encourage them to actually achieve their post-secondary degrees. So post-secondary attainment is very important.
One of the primary goals, excuse me, as you just mentioned, of your office is to provide grants and some of the information that goes along with that money. Your office was granted roughly $400 million in the next biennium. That's your appropriation. About $300 million of that is dedicated to grants. Is that enough, in your opinion?
It's never enough. When we invest in education, we give back to the state. There's a very strong connection between the quality and investment that we make in education and our ability to sustain ourselves from an economic development perspective. Our institutions, education, providing for the future workers and employees that we need. We know, for example, through the Georgetown study, there are certain areas wherein we will have, are projected to have, a shortage. This means then that that kind of information can be very helpful to a student as they make their choices. If you recall, the Governor Dayton, made a very clear statement in February. We're trying to protect the core, which is our state grant program, while also maintaining and helping the universities keep their tuition costs down so that they can provide they know, for example, the totality of the fiscal experiences that they're having so that they can keep and manage those funds in a way that would allow greater access and opportunity for our students.
And given the cuts to the U and the MNSCU system, do you think that a balance has been reached? Do you think it can be reached? They did. It was decided in those bills to cap tuition at no more than 4% of an increase. Is that a good balance for the reductions to their appropriations?
No, it was decided that it would be 4% cap for two-year institutions. No cap was on for the four-year institutions.
Thank you for that clarification.
And keep in mind, too, that Governor Dayton's position has been very clear that those types of decisions about tuition costs, et cetera, are best kept with the Board of Regents and the Board of Trustees. We must trust the experts that we have, the leaders that we have, and the governing systems that we have of our two systems to make those choices on behalf of our citizens. So he made it very clear that he felt strongly that the issue of cap should be kept with the Board of Regents and the Board of Trustees. However, the decision in our state statute is a 4% cap with the two-year institutions, which should help keep at a level, help them manage the cuts. Nonetheless, we must keep in mind that we have had a succession of 8 years or more in which funding or filling our deficit has been at the expense of higher education. So my personal position and Governor Dayton's position is that we should look forward to the future and figuring out ways where we are, and where we're going, and how we're going to keep from having this erosion of higher education funding occur.
Okay, and I don't mean to interject, but we are almost out of time. So what would your advice be to parents and to students as they're looking into the future, as you just mentioned, and maybe looking into going to college or a higher education facility?
Well, for one thing, I would encourage everyone to contact our representatives here at the Office of Higher Education. We have a host of well-qualified staff and employees who are willing to assist and to help with making choices, of getting information, becoming informed so you can make discerning choices as you're going about your career. I would also encourage them to contact institutions that they might be interested in and sitting down with the leaders of those institutions to gain more of a feel of, is this the right place for me at this time? There, of course, on what's on everyone's mind is how we're going to pay for it.
Right.
And so therein again, I would encourage people to come to the Office of Higher Education. We have a huge issue with information dissemination and can help in that way.
Okay, Dr. Sheila Wright, unfortunately we're out of time, but we appreciate your time today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
For more than 25 years, he worked in the economic development sector in both the private and public sectors. Commissioner of the Department of Employment and Economic Development, otherwise known as DEED, Mark Phillips, joins me now to talk about his new post. Commissioner, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Julie.
Let's talk first of all, as I just mentioned, 25 years working in this particular area. Tell me what you learned both in the private and public sectors that you're taking into your new position.
Well, I think that what I've learned is that economic development programs can have an impact on what is known as the private economy, and there's an appropriate role for government in that field. And I think that one of my goals at DEED is to make sure that we're doing all that we can for job creation in Minnesota.
What do you think appropriate is? You just used that word. So what is the appropriate role for government in trying to spur economic growth and jobs?
Well, you know, it's changed over the years, and sometimes it's, providing, when I first got in the economic development business, that was a lot to do with access to capital. I think that may be an issue again now. But at that time, it was high interest rates. So most programs had to do with trying to temper the interest rates so businesses could access financing and grow. Obviously, that is not a problem now. Interest rates are at an all-time low, but Certain market dynamics and government regulation has made access to capital once again an issue, so we're going to try to address that. But we're also facing demographic changes that are affecting our workforce, and so my department is also involved in workforce development, so that's an appropriate role of government as well.
And let's talk a little bit about funding relating to those various areas. You know, Deed did take a funding reduction by the legislature, about $110 million for the fiscal cycle. Is that enough to do with what you hope to achieve? And I know that there's some other money coming in for other programs that's new money. So how does that all offset?
Well, we've tried to become more efficient, and I think that you know, we took some cuts in some programmatical areas, but we also received some new money for our one of our most successful program, the Minnesota Investment Fund. We got some modest amount for our redevelopment efforts.
Is that also known as the Angel Investment Fund, or is that a different fund?
No, that's a different fund.
Okay.
This is money that we use to attract industry to Minnesota, the Minnesota Investment Fund. You know, it's in economic development lingo, it's kind of closing money. It's money you can put for incentives to bring companies here. It's been very effective. It's a program that started under Mark Dayton when he was Deed Commissioner back in the early 80s, and it's had the test of time, I guess, to its effectiveness.
Governor Dayton was, in fact, Commissioner of Deed back in the day. What's it like to serve under somebody who had your position?
Well, and he's put job creation as one of the top priorities of his administration, so I guess there's a little bit of pressure on me. But that's when I met Governor Dayton. I was the Economic Development Director at Iron Range Resources during the Purpose administration when he was Deed Commissioner. And if you recall, those were the years where the mining industry in northern Minnesota was going through a lot of upheaval. And both the governor and Commissioner Dayton spent a lot of time with me in northern Minnesota at that time, so I got to know the governor quite well.
Do you share the same vision?
Well, in fact, that was an issue when I was, somebody nominated me to be Deed Commissioner. When I went to the interview, I told them this is kind of an interview with you as well for me, because I wanted to make sure we were aligned. And we are very closely aligned on the vision for how we might create jobs.
And let's talk a little bit about working with a legislature that was focused on not increasing spending. Mm-hmm. Coming into it knowing that, how challenging was it? Was it challenging to try to get the resources that you were able to secure?
The governor's budget, we had to negotiate that with the governor. And his budget was a decrease from the previous biennium. So we felt that we had negotiated those cuts, though, on where we thought we could gain some efficiencies and take them. The bills that passed the House and Senate that were ultimately vetoed were a little bit deeper, and that gets to the issue where the governor was fighting for a little more revenue in order to not cut the program so severely. So I guess you could say we were in the governor's camp on that. But I would say that both Senator Michel and Representative Gunther really were trying to do the best job, and they listened, and they most of the time agreed that the areas that we put our priorities, and I think that's demonstrated by the fact that they gave us some new money for the investment fund and for the redevelopment fund. So I can't say enough that, and our discussions were always very civil, and it never deteriorated at all. So I had a very good experience working with both Senator Michel and Representative Gunther.
Okay, we are almost out of time, Commissioner, but I do want to ask you, Minnesotans out there are just waiting, anticipating when this economy is going to turn around, when more jobs are going to be created. What do you want to say to them now that you are the new leader of one of the entities tasked with this?
Sure. And we are seeing some improvement. We had a bigger job number in June for job creation, about 13,000 jobs. In fact, the whole country was about 18,000. So you have pluses and minuses, so it's not an easy arithmetic to do. But we are tracking several points better than the federal unemployment rate. We're at about 6.5%. They're at 9.4, I think, or 9.3. So we feel that Minnesota's coming out of this recession maybe a little bit faster than country, but still very slowly. I'm hoping that that means that the gains we're making are sustainable, because very often when you have huge job gains, it's a little more volatility. And I think we're seeing a number of strong areas, and I think that's what Governor Dayton wants to play to the strengths.
Okay, Commissioner Mark Phillips, thanks so much for sharing your vision and your perspective today. We appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me.
It's been more than a week and a half since the end of the special legislative session, and budget bills have now been signed. We have the Deputy Majority Leader of the Senate, Geoff Michel, here to give us his perspective on that negotiation process. Thank you for joining us today, Senator Michel.
Good to be back.
Take us back a week and a half ago to the special session and the negotiations and those final hours in particular.
Yeah, it was all kind of a whirlwind. But I guess I'd frame it up this way for you, Julie. Since the governor and the speaker and Majority Leader Koch came to that, what we called a framework for an agreement, there was a real sprint from that point on that involved commissioners and governor's staff, the Dayton administration, our members, our committee chairs, working with the House, and we needed to put together 10 bills. I don't want to say in record time, because the meat of those bills had already been agreed on, had already been passed, in many cases vetoed by the governor, but we kind of were able to resurrect them. And so I guess I would summarize it this way: a lot of good work over the course of 4 or 5 days. And I guess in some ways I wish that work and those kind of discussions would have happened in April or May rather than July. But events transpired to kick us into a special session. So I hope that that's something we can build upon, that looking into next year, into 2012, can't believe we're using those numbers now, that we can build on kind of a new level of trust and relationship and real substantive discussions on all the bills,
And in fact, you bring up my next question. You open the door to it. There was some concern about a month and a half ago by some members of each caucus that perhaps the negotiations would become so acrimonious that it would damage relationships into the future. Do you think that that has happened, or are you able to salvage, as you said, some trust and a good working relationship?
I like to be the relentless optimist here. And I actually think kind of going through this, I don't know, some might have described it as a war, a battle. I actually think some really good relationships come out of that. And here's an example. Some great work was done on the Health and Human Services bill. I give a lot of credit. I would actually give medals of honor to Senator Han, Representative Abler, and Commissioner Jessen. The three of them worked months together on that bill. That's a huge bill. Just literally it's hundreds of pages, but it involves large amounts of money, dealing with the federal government and the rules and regulations that come with that. And so I believe those three principals are in a position where they can continue to talk about reforms and how we shape that part of the budget.
And in fact, you bring up another good question. We spoke with DEED Commissioner Mark Phillips. We'll show that a bit later we've already shown that in the show, excuse me. And he said that he had a great working relationship with you as well, and the House author of the jobs bill. So let's begin with a quick overview of that jobs bill real quickly. Do you think that your bill achieves the goal of job creation?
I'm going to be honest here, Julie. I think it's a poorly named bill. It's called the jobs bill because of a number of departments that it works with. But I think this new Republican majority came to the Capitol with an understanding and a strong belief that it's not government, it's not a bill that creates jobs, that we have to lay a foundation so that the private sector can grow. And frankly, that was a point of contention, not just on this bill, but on the entire budget. I do feel very good about what we accomplished with that. It's another one of the bills that actually has real cuts. Frankly, in order to afford the Health and Human Services and K-12 bills, every other bill had real cuts in it. So I'm not going to say that is going to that bill is going to cure the economy and we're going to be rolling again. There's other things we need to do. But I would say again that that's an example of some relationships and some understandings that we can now use as a platform to move strongly into the 2012 session talking about jobs and the private sector economy.
And what do you want to do to build on what was done?
You know, I think the first step we need to do is we need to listen to job creators. You will have legislator after legislator coming in here year after year talking about budget deficits unless we get the private sector economy going again. That definitely gets us back into the talk about taxes, what level of taxes are appropriate, what kind of taxes are appropriate. So I think there'll be a lot of discussion about tax reform. We have to lower the cost of doing business in Minnesota. We need to make this the best place to grow a business, to start a business, to keep a business. And as the economy starts to show some signs of life and people are ready to take a risk, people are ready to spend some money, we want them to do it here in this state. So there's not one bill, there's not one magical answer to that, but I think we need to go around the state. That's what I'd like to see the committee that I'm involved in and the entire legislature do. Talking to small businesses, talking to venture capitalists, talking to entrepreneurs. What can we do to make your lives easier? We want you to stay here. We want you to grow here. So we'll be talking about taxes, we'll talk about regulations, we'll be talking about tort reform. I think 2012 could be a very important, lively, and productive session when it comes to jobs.
And we're almost out of time, but using your words, taking a risk, I want you to take a risk and give me your thoughts on a Viking Stadium bill emerging and potentially a special session in the fall.
Yeah, you know, I was not a part of any Viking Stadium discussion in the last month. It sounds like there were plenty of talk behind closed doors, and it involves multiple parties. I'd say it's still a long shot. I guess to use football terms, I'd say a Viking Stadium is still a long pass downfield into double coverage. But
Donovan McNabb could make that play.
I'm happy with what the Vikings have added recently, but I'm not sure if it's quite ripe yet for to bring it back to the legislature. But
all right,
stay
fair
tuned.
enough. We're
Stay
out of
tuned.
time, Senator. Thank you for your time. We
Thanks,
appreciate
Julie.
it. Senator Linda Berglin, a driving force behind health care reform in the state, is stepping down. She has taken a new job that continues her focus on health care issues, but in a different setting.
I look forward to continuing to use what I have learned in the legislature and to continue learning as I work now at the ground level to make policies that I've worked on at the state level work for people in the community.
We sat down with Senator Berglin to get her perspective on her longtime legislative career. Senator Linda Berglin, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
You know, during your tenure in public office, you served with 7 different governors. You saw one president of the United States resign from public office, and you saw the first Black American sworn in as president of the United States. In your opinion, is this country and the state better off today than it was in 1972 when you were first elected?
Well, there are things that have changed for the better and there are things that have changed for the worse. You know, in 1972, we didn't have all of the home and community-based services that we have today to help our elders and disabled citizens be able to live and be full contributing members of our communities. So this is a good thing that we have made those kind of changes. We're a little bit closer to having more people with health insurance than we were then, and so this is a good thing. But I worry a little bit that we are losing our sense of community, that we're losing our sense of being part of a neighborhood, part of a state where people are there for each other when they need to be. Because I see so many things going by the wayside that have been important and have been helpful to people when they need.
One of your major accomplishments while in the Senate was the creation of the state's Minnesota Care program. It helps provide health coverage to low-income Minnesotans. Do you think this program has become the envy of other states?
There are a lot of other states that would like to have a program like this, and there are other states that have had a program like this and don't have it anymore. So yes, I think so. And it will be helpful to us when federal health reform does go into place to have people already in some kind of coverage so that they'll be able to transition and our budget will be able to transition more easily.
How difficult of a decision was it for you to move on and leave the Senate at this time?
Well, the position that I have taken gives me an opportunity to serve many of the same people and to work on many of the same things that I'm passionate about, but to do it closer to the ground and to actually see policies that I have hoped would be implemented actually being implemented. So
same work, different structure.
yes, I'm excited about the new opportunity.
You seem like it. Good. So I want to ask you, is there any work that you think has been left undone as you do leave the Senate?
Oh yes, of course. But there's always work to be done because things always need to keep changing. Health reform needs to continue to be implemented at the state level as we get ready for being a partner with the federal law. And that will mean things like rethinking how state-operated services works, for example. We, of course, have moved backwards a little bit in terms of the things that we have made available to children. Child care was cut, mental health for children was cut a little bit, adult mental health was cut. So there will be things that people need to take a look at and see what, if anything, can be done to buoy up those structures.
Any advice for lawmakers moving forward?
One of the things that's been so great about being in the legislature for me is working with so many groups of people, being able to learn so much over the years. It's been just a great educational experience for me, and I hope others will look at the job the same way and use the opportunity they have to keep learning and growing and being able to improve the way they serve Minnesotans.
And what would you like to say to your constituents? You've been representing them for almost 40 years.
They are the greatest. You know, they've never wavered. I've never had to worry about, you know, trends that would take place in politics. They were rock solid, and so it's been really a pleasure to serve them. It's been an opportunity that I will cherish all my life that they've given me, and I appreciate the trust they've placed in me, and I will still be there for any of them that ever need me.
All right, Senator Linda Berglin, congratulations on your new post, and thanks so much for joining us today. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
That wraps up this week's program. From all of us at Senate Media Services, I'm Julie Bartkey. Thanks for watching Capitol Report.